In this video, we will build a web page using HTML and CSS. And this is what we're going to be building here in this video. So you can see that we've got this top navigation on the right side of the page. And we've got some intro text in a larger font size. We have some news stories with links underneath. And we've got a gallery at the bottom right of the page. Then on the left side of the page, we have a background image and we have a headline text. So that would be the name of our site. That will probably be an H1 tag. And then underneath we have a description. So I'm going to open up our directory now in my code editor. So I've set up some basic files in here, including an HTML file and a CSS file. And I'm using Visual Studio Code to edit the code in this video to write our HTML and our CSS. And you can get that software for free. It is open source. So looking at our site directory right now, we have this images folder that I've created. I've saved some images here already, and I have a basic template for the index.html, and I've got a style sheet then which is completely blank right now. And this is a page mockup that I've made in Photoshop. I just created this really simple design layout using some photos from Unsplash. And we've got a top navigation, some body content here, and a very simple gallery which we will have a hover effect on the images. So let's hop in now and start to code up some of the basic HTML that we need on this page. So I'm going to begin by creating a main element within the body, and we'll assign a class of main left. And we will also do the same of the main right, so that we'll split this page into two. So we're going to have a two-column layout here, and on the left column we're going to have a headline text, so a header 1. We'll also have a header 2, which will be the description of our site. And then on the right side of the page I will have a navigation. So I'm going to use an unordered list, a UL element, and we'll give it a CSS class of nav. So within this list we'll have multiple list elements, li tags, and each of those will have a link inside. So I'm going to leave the href attribute empty on these links, but you can set up individual pages. But for the purpose of this video, we'll just create the landing page or the home page. So let's write some basic CSS now to give a width and layout to our two columns. So I'm going to set a background color on these columns just to make it really easy to see if this layout is working. And we can see that the content is stacked underneath each other. So what we can do is use this main element that we have on the page and give it a display value of flex. Now flex will automatically assign these as column layouts, so they'll be placed side by side. I'm going to set a body margin of 0. Now this will remove the white space around the outside of the browser. And I want the content on the page to expand the full height of the browser window. So I'm going to set a minimum height on our main element. So we'll set that to maybe 1100, and this will allow a scroll bar, so we'll be able to scroll down a little bit. But we want to have this left column with white text. So currently we've got a header 1 and a header 2 tag. So let's define the styles for these tags. Say color, and we'll make this a white color. And now let's attach the background image. So we want to have a background image on the left column. And we've already got that saved out in our folder. So we'll assign a background image, and we're going to have a URL, and we want to go up one directory, so we'll use a 2 dots followed by a /. And we are selecting the image for our background. And we can set the position of that background image to the 0 on the x-axis and 0 on the y-axis. And we'll assign the value to cover the entire space. So you can see that the image now has been placed, and it looks pretty good actually. I think what we can do is reduce the width of this left column. I want it to be aligned to the left of the page, so that if the browser is much bigger, then the right side of the page can extend, but the left side will stay at a maximum width. So we can set a max width on that left column. And the right column, we have just used a gray background just to see the layout, but that will be a white background. So let's change that now. That will fill the remainder of the space in the browser window. And the text in our left column, we want to space that away from the edge of the browser and from the top. So we'll use padding to place that. So we'll add 50 pixel padding to the top of this heading tag. And we'll do the same on the left, but the padding will be a little bit less on the left. So let's try 30 pixels. And it's still not quite enough. Maybe we can increase these numbers. 70 pixels on top. And we can compare that against the design, but I think it's reasonable. I think it's quite close. We're not going to measure things too precisely here. I just want to show you how to do this. But normally if I was building a page and someone had provided me with the designs, I would be measuring things more accurately. But this is just a quick video showing you how to go about building this kind of design. So back on the right column now, I'm going to add some padding here also, just to align the navigation with the text on the left column. And then within our navigation, I'm going to set the list style to none. So this will remove the bullet points that we see on our list, and I will display those in line. So displaying it as flex will align all of the list elements next to each other horizontally. For each of the links within our navigation menu, I'm going to add padding just to space those out. So you can see that the links are black in color and they are also uppercase. So let's do that now. And to make the links stand out a little bit more, I'm going to make the font weight bold. And you can see that each of these links have an underline beneath them. So we can remove that using text decoration, set that to none. And once we move our mouse over these navigation links, we want them to stand out a little bit more. And we can do that using the hover effect. So we can set a different color, or we can set a underline. We can modify it once we hover that link. So now once we reload the page, we can see that underline text once we hover the navigation menu. So underneath this, we want to add the intro text. So I'm just adding some dummy text, and we'll wrap this in a strong tag within a paragraph tag. And we'll have a look in the browser. So you can see that the text is not aligned correctly. And I think the reason for that is because the navigation menu has padding by default. So normally browsers have their own default settings for lists, headings, and different elements on the page. So sometimes we need to correct that, and we can do that by overriding the CSS. And normally when you're building websites, we use a reset style sheet, and that fixes all of these little browser quirks because each browser handles these things a little bit differently. For the sake of this video, we're just doing everything from scratch. We still have a little alignment issue between the navigation and the text underneath, and that is due to us having the padding in our navigation links. So I'm going to remove that for now, and we'll add that to the list element. We'll cut and paste this into the list element. So the first link in the navigation menu, that first list element, we will zero the padding on the left. So that fixes the alignment of our menu with the body copy. I'm going to extend the content in this paragraph at the top just to make it fill out into a multi-line piece of text. And directly underneath this, we will add a heading 3 tag. So this will be for our latest news. And I will also add this into our CSS style sheet. So we'll set a font size of 18 pixels. And I think for this content, we need to set a maximum width. So right now it's extending the full width of the browser window, but we want to have that push down to the next line, that top paragraph. So this will mean that on bigger browsers, it will stop the right column from extending too far. So reloading the page, and I think the layout looks much better here. Next thing we can add is these latest news entries. So we'll have a title and some paragraph text and then a link directly underneath that. So I'm going to create a div to put this inside. Give it a class of news item. And we'll put a paragraph tag which has a class of title. So let's add a second paragraph, and this will be the content of this news item. So just add some lorem ipsum text, and then directly underneath I will add a link, which is a read more link, and I'm going to add the greater than symbol. So once we reload this, we can see that we have got this content. I want to make the title bold, but we can do that in the CSS, and we will have two greater than symbols on this read more link. So the greater than symbol is just to make it look like an arrow shape. So let's add some styling for our title. Say font weight bold. And I'll also add a margin bottom. And for each news item, we can control the paragraph margin top. So let's remove the margin top in the paragraph. We'll just tighten up the spacing in our news item. In fact, we can do that for both the top, bottom. For the link, we can change the color. Make that a light blue color. We can pick a color here. So I'm going to set the margin top on this link, and we can display that link as inline block. So that will allow us to attach a margin to it to control the spacing. And it looks quite plain, this link, so maybe we can just remove the underline. When I compare it back to the original design, things are starting to look quite close. We can make some improvements, but first let's continue to add more content. So I will copy the news item and create a second one. And we'll just change the title. And we can definitely add some spacing in between these news items. We'll add a margin. So add a margin to the bottom of 20 pixels. And then we want to have this gallery title. So that would be an H3 tag, just like we had for the latest news. And then we want to add images that appear underneath this heading. So we'll have some gallery images here. And we have got 6 images already created for this tutorial. And I'm going to create a div to wrap around these images. So we'll call this div gallery items. We'll give it a class of gallery items. And then I will just add all 6 of these images. So let's test this out. And you will see that they do fit here, but they are 2 images wide. I want to have these 3 images wide. So first of all, I'm going to copy the class name of this div. And in fact, what we can do here is select the images within the div and set a width on those images. So I will set this at 33%, try it out. And they have been reduced, but I guess because of the spacing around the images, they aren't fitting quite right. So bringing this down to 32%, and we can see that we are fitting all 3 images in. So looking now at the headings and the intro copy, we want to make those bigger, style them a little bit better. They just look quite plain right now. So let's begin with this intro paragraph. So let's give this a class of lead. So this will be our lead text, and we will make this bigger. I'll increase the font size for this text. And I'm going to increase the font size on our H3 tags. So I'm making the font size 24 pixels. And I'm going to add the class for this lead text. So I'll set the font size for this text. I'm going to set a margin for this too. It's a little bit big, this text. I think we can go down a little bit in size. So the text looks really plain right now. I think this is just like the default text, which is maybe Times New Roman or Helvetica or something like that. Let's change the text on the body of our page. So we'll set a default font family. So we'll go with the Arial Helvetica. So it looks a little bit better already. The headlines stand out more. The intro text looks better. One thing would be nice here is to modify the text on the left. So we want to make this uppercase, have a smaller width to display the text, and break it into 3 lines. So first of all, I'll set the width. So we'll cut off at 200 pixels, allowing the text to wrap. And we'll add the uppercase transformation. Maybe we can increase the width a little bit more. We'll increase the line height for the heading 2 tag and also the heading 1. It looks quite reasonable right now. We can increase the margin between these two, space them out a little bit. So add a margin top to the H2 tag. So that looks quite good right now, but I think we can improve this even more by changing the font. So I'm going to add a Google font to our page, and I've put in the title of my web page. So this allows me to check the text against my design so I can see what it looks like on the screen, switch over to my design. And I think a good option here is something like Montserrat or Leto. And I think we can go with Leto for this. So I just need to select which font types I want from this collection. So I want to take the regular and the bold. And then I'm going to click this import option on the right side. I'm going to use this to import into my style sheet. So I'll just copy this, go to the top of my CSS file, and drop this code in. So that will allow us to use this on our page. I just need to add the font family to decide which places on the page I want to use this font. So I'm going to add it to the H1, the H2, and the H3. I'll copy this CSS font family later. Drop this in. Let's try this out. So you can see on the left that we have this text. The typeface has changed, but we don't have it yet on our menu or our intro text. So let's add these also. So our lead paragraph, and also the menu and the titles of our news items. So that's looking pretty good right now. So the body copy is a different typeface. So we can add some hover effects to these menus and the links. So let's have a look at that now to make it a little bit more interactive. So for the images, we can add a border around the image. So we'll have a 1 pixel solid border, and I think we can make that a gray color. So we'll give it a light gray color to start with. So you can see it a little bit, it's quite subtle. So now once we hover that image, we want to add styles for the hover effect. So we can change the border color, make the border a little bit darker. So now once we hover, we can see this effect of the border standing out a little bit more. And we can also change the cursor. So to make it look more interactive, we can change the cursor to a pointer. Now, of course, if you are doing this, you would want to build some functionality where the user can click on the image, but for the sake of our demo, we're just covering the basic styling and build of this page. So another thing we can do here to make this stand out even more is to change the opacity of our images. So by default, we'll set them at 0.7, so they are only 70% transparent. And once we hover them, then we will increase that to 100% transparency. So you can see that hover effect now once we move our mouse over the image. So moving on now to the links underneath each of these news items. So once we hover these, I want to have a change in color for that link. So let's add the news item hover status. So once we hover this link, so let's set the color. So we can just copy the color from the link before, and then I'm going to modify this. So part of this code editor allows us to use this color selector, which is quite nice. So it allows us just to pick a color. Let's try this out. And you can see the hover now, we got this lighter color of blue. And we can also do the same thing for our navigation menu. So I'm going to use the same color of blue. So let's copy that, and we'll go to our navigation section in our CSS file. So let's add the hover for this link in our navigation. And now you can see that we have got this nice highlighted color once we hover the navigation menu. Another thing we can do here is remove this underline. So we do have this text underneath. Actually, we've already got this hover status underneath. So I'll just move the style down. Almost missed that. And in here, I'm going to remove the underline. And instead of having an underline once we hover the link, I'm going to add a border to the bottom. You can see a very faint border here. I'm using a dotted border. We can change that to a dashed border, which will make it stand out a little bit more. And we'll add a little bit of padding just to space it down from our text. So it's a little bit different, a little more subtle in displaying this hover effect for the line. So that is the end of this video. Hopefully you guys have found this helpful, and you can also check out the code in the GitHub repository if you want to see how I put this together and access the code I created by the end of this video. So I will drop a link to that in the description below if you want to check that out. And if you enjoy this content, make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel for more videos, and I will see you guys in the next video.